Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about flight risks. So, what is a flight risk? Well, this is somebody that is potentially looking like they're about to drop out of your school. And before we start to talk about how we can solve this problem, I'm going to talk a bit about how you would identify this problem. So, do you know sometimes you have a student that has always been super keen, super eager, works hard in your classes, always pushes himself to the front, turns up regularly, wears your uniform, like just the dream student or someone that comes close to it. And they have a certain way that they behave in your school in terms of their enthusiasm and their commitment. And then all of a sudden, one day you suddenly realize that this person who never, ever, ever missed a class, unless they were really poorly, has missed 2 or 3 this term. And without kind of having any real reason. And then when they come to class, they've kind of started moving themselves further back the room. Like maybe they don't ever stand on the front anymore. Maybe they're right at the back, or maybe they're starting to mess about a little bit. Perhaps their behavior has changed. Maybe you're sensing that they don't put anywhere near as much effort in as they used to, like their actual energy level and concentration and focus and attitude has changed in class. You might even find that they don't come into class on time. You have to go out to the changing room and drag them in. They're always the last one. You know, these are all what I call red flags, aren't they? They're all little signs that somebody is starting to potentially maybe lose interest. Maybe there are issues within their classes. Perhaps they've moved up a class and they're finding the new class and the new work a little bit challenging. And instead of throwing themselves into it and, tackling the new challenge and the harder level with a real gusto and enthusiasm, they've gone the opposite way and they're retracting and they're withdrawing. Sometimes there could be reasons socially in a class. They've fallen out with somebody in the less class, or maybe there's somebody that they're not getting on terribly well with at school that is in their class. The social aspect is huge for kids. This activity that they do after school, they do purely out of choice. They don't have to go. They don't have to come to dance. They can drop it whenever they like, provided they've given notice, of course. So, maybe they found themselves in a situation socially where they're not happy. Their friends taken an exam and moved up, and now they feel like they've lost their buddy in their lesson. So there are a lot of reasons why a child may start to go off the boil and become a flight risk. So I think the first thing is that's really important that we start to identify this. Like you start to make notes like, am I imagining it, or has Chloe missed the last couple of classes? Am I imagining it, or does Chloe seem to be, chatting a bit more in her lessons? She's not so worried about her results in terms of her progress. Is it all in my head, or do I have to keep dragging her out of the changing room? Like, what are the red flags that are coming up around a student? And the important thing as a studio owner is that you also train your team to recognize these red flags. And here's the crucial bit: feed this back to you. Because I'm going to talk in a second about what you can do to try and kind of win this student back over. But you can't win someone back over if you don't know that there's a problem. And of course, as a principal, you're probably not teaching all the children in your school. Some of them you may not even ever see. If you hire multiple locations and other teachers teach some of your classes and you only teach, say, the older children in your school, you may not see some of your students, week in, week out. And therefore, the first you know about a flight risk is when they've already taken flight. It's when you get that email to say, I'm really sorry, but she's decided to stop and, she won't be coming back next term. Or when you get those kids that turn around and say, she's quit. She ain't coming anymore. She's quit. I hate that word. I've always hated that word. She's given up. She's decided not to come. There's so much nicer, but you know how they love to say it. Oh yeah, she's quit. And you're like, oh, okay. Why? How did that happen? Like, I didn't see that coming. Maybe it's because you don't teach that child, and therefore the teachers, have maybe been sensing and feeling this, but not passed it on. So really important that you do some training with your teachers around recognizing if a student is becoming a flight risk, and then what you would expect them to do. Like, give them 3 steps, give them 4 steps, give them some training, give them permission to do this or to say that. But if nothing else, ask them to message you, like a simple text. Haven't seen Molly in a couple of weeks and she just seems to have gone off the boil a little bit. Thought I would just bring it to your attention. So then what do we do when we have identified and we do know that we're looking like we're going to lose a student? And of course, we don't always know. Sometimes people just disappear for no real reason and you haven't seen it coming. But that's another story. But we're talking about those ones where you have identified that they look like they're probably not going to come back next month or next term. Well, I'm sure you've all got things that you would do, but I call this the loop-de-loop system. Like, it's possible, like a roller coaster, it's possible to take them on a little bit of a journey, a last minute effort on your behalf to see if you can turn that student completely around so that instead of feeling like they don't want to be in your school anymore, they're back to loving their dance classes, loving your school, and, staying for another 10 years. So I thought I would just share with you guys today the planners that I have produced for dance school owners, because these are flying out of Amazon like hotcakes. And if you don't have yours yet, then all you have to do is pop to Amazon and type into the search Deborah Laws, and all 3 books will come up. So the ultimate dance business planner I designed for you so that you had a little bit of a Deborah on your desktop. The planners are full of business training, tips, motivational quotes, things to do at the start of the month, things to do at the end of the month, ways in which you can plan out your marketing and your retention, and they are selling all over the world. So go to Amazon, grab your #1 best-selling Ultimate Dance Business Planner and enjoy mapping out the growth for your studio. So the first thing I would do, and I think this is really crucial, is to start to have some communication. Like, it's important that you start to communicate with the child, depending on their age, and with the parent, the carer, whoever it is that you see that regularly brings the child, and say, I've noticed that she's not quite so engaged in classes lately. And she's missed a couple of lessons, and she's not always turning up with her hair in a bun like she used to. Like, I just she's such a lovely, talented child. I just would love to know, is there something that's going on with Jessica? Is there something that we can do? Like, is there a problem with her dancing that you're aware of? Could you have a chat with her? Now, sometimes parents are fully aware. Sometimes parents have known for weeks and they're still encouraging their child to keep going, and they know what the problem is. And at this point, they're likely to share because you've approached them. You've given them the opportunity to tell you what the problems are. The parent might not have any idea. This might be a real shock. That might be complete news to them that you're having to go and drag them out the changing room. Or if it's an older child, sometimes they're not even aware that they haven't been to class. If they make their own way to dance, you don't know what's going on. Maybe they're going and meeting the boyfriend instead, or the girlfriend, and hanging out with their friends in the park, and the parent thinks they're at dance. Like, you don't know how much the parent knows what's going on. So pick up the phone, talk to the parent in the car park, send the parent a message, text them, email them, whatever you need to do to have these frank and honest opinions, and come from it always with a concerned, empathetic, it would be such a shame if Jess lost her love for dance altogether. Like, firstly, can you tell us if you know if there is anything that we can help with? But secondly, if there isn't anything that you're aware of, can you have these conversations with the child? Can you find out if there's anything that she's not happy with? And then after having delved for some information, try to find out if there's a problem or what the problem is, you're then in a position where you can try and tackle that. So if it's a friendship thing, for example, it's quite easy to have a conversation with one of the other really lovely kids in your class and say, look, so-and-so's feeling a little bit left out. Every time we go to the corner and we partner up, she never has a friend. Her friend that she did have has moved up into the next class. She's a little bit unhappy and she's thinking that she might stop. Could you do me a favor? Could I get you to make an effort with Jessica? Could I get you to be her friend when you go to the corner? Could you buddy her up? Could you do that for me? Like, need you to be my little helper. So it might be that you can help socially if there's something going on in a class. If the child is struggling, maybe the parent says, well, yes, actually, she's lost interest since she's moved up into this class. She's finding grade 3 tap really, really hard. And she's saying, Mummy, I don't enjoy it anymore. It's too hard. This is something you can easily deal with because, being aware that the child is struggling more than they're letting on, you can go and spend that little bit of extra time over the next couple of weeks, break something down a bit further, or put some strategy into your class where they work in smaller groups and you're able to go round and then specifically help that child a little bit more than normal. Sometimes they just need help, don't they? Getting over a hurdle. I can't tell you the number of times I told my mum that I wanted to give up dance over the years. Normally when it came up to an exam, because we all get anxious about exams, and normally, believe it or not, when it came up to a show, because I was a very nervous performer. So I used to get so many nerves around showtime that it made me literally, sick with anxiety. And so for me, like, I'd start saying, oh, Mummy, I don't think I want to go dancing anymore. Like, I think I want to stop and do horse riding. And, eventually she'd prize out of me it was because the show was coming up. And of course, I always loved it when I got there and I was always absolutely fine. But I'd have those initial nerves and, moments of anxiety. So I was always so grateful that my mum kept me dancing, encouraged me over those hurdles. And I'm sure my teachers were involved in that as well. But so, when a child becomes a flight risk, very often you can turn them around. You can give them the extra time. You can find out if it's a friendship thing. You can offer to give them a couple of private lessons if they need specific help in an area. Paid, I would say, of course, just throw that little little thing in. Or it might be that the child just needs to be noticed a bit more. Maybe you're focusing on a particular group because they've got a performance coming up or a show or an exam coming up, and you are a little bit guilty of not ignoring the rest of the class. I know you'd never do that, but maybe they're having a bit less attention. And in your mind, you kind of justify that by saying, oh, yes, but when it's their exam, they'll get the extra attention. That is true. But of course, that doesn't mean that child may not drop off in the meantime because she feels that she's not being noticed, she's not being seen. So it might mean just a little bit more attention for a few weeks, a little bit more praise. Let them know that they're doing really well. I know you're not taking your exam this time, but I'm so impressed with your progress. You're working really hard, and I can already see that you're going to be, in the group that will be doing it the next time. Sometimes we just need a bit of a boost to our ego and how we feel. And that's all it takes. It's all it takes. How many times have you done that? You've just given a little bit more praise to a child that you know is about to leave. And a few weeks later, the parent turns around and says, she's decided to stay. So these things that I've just been talking about in terms of how you loop them, how you manage to get to the bottom of the problem and hopefully turn them around, are things, again, that you also need to teach your teachers, because please don't take for granted that they know how to do this, or that they feel it's part of their job. Maybe they don't feel it's that relevant. Maybe they think, I turn up, I teach, I do my job really well. If a child wants to leave, that's up to them. That's not really my problem. Well, of course it's their problem. Their job is to retain your students. Of course, their job is to teach, but ultimately their job is to retain your students. So think about the reasons why they leave. Try and identify it, speak to parents, speak to the child. What can be done? What can the teacher do? What training do you need to give your teachers around flight risks? And hopefully you'll be able to hang on to several children that might have potentially thought about leaving or might have become leavers before. And of course, ultimately the last thing I would do if they've just gone off ballet after several years is suggest another class. Like if you insist on a 4-week notice period or a 6-week notice period, suggest that, hey, why, instead of continuing to come to ballet, which she clearly doesn't want to do anymore, how about you come and try out some of our other classes over the next 4 weeks? And it might be that you can find a class that really excites them, that means that they'll stay. Everybody, I hope that's been a little bit of help to you today. If you're already all over the top of this, maybe just think of it in terms of whether your team are all over this. And perhaps this is an area that you could do some training in for them. Everybody, have a fabulous couple of weeks, and I will see you on our next podcast. Are you looking to get precious time back in your life so you can make more time doing the things you love? DanceBiz is a class management and booking software from the lovely folk at Think Smart that will automate and streamline all your dance school admin. It's the perfect tool for all those tasks that just seem to take so long and will help you to work smarter, not harder. Message me today, folks, and I can give you a code so you can get 2 months free.